Hey guys, so we are trying to start event today. First of all, thank you so much for coming to our event, Kickstart Your Entrepreneurial Journey with Clearco. So we're very excited to have you guys today. And before we start our event, we would like to do a link acknowledgement. Sorry, a little glitch in here. So we wish to acknowledge this land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Sinnataka, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit River. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. So on the next slide, we'll talk about UTBT and some general introduction of this session. So please, we are definitely welcoming you guys to join UTBT Slack community, and link will be shared in Zoom chat. And definitely welcome you guys to connect with other attendees as well as UTBT execs via the networking sheet, also will be shared in Zoom chat. And also the final note is that this event is actually being recorded. So before we're going to introduce all the amazing raps today we have, we're going to quickly run through the agenda today. First, we'll start by the presentation by Clearco, followed by Q&A, and then move to interactive Q&A style panel with startups funded by Clearco, and then we move to exciting portion, which is networking, and then followed by closing remarks. Without no further ado, I'll pass to Andy to introduce the Clearco raps.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, instead of me, I'll pass on to Afna to handle the reps introduction. Thank you.
Hey guys, so thank you for being here. I'm Afnan, one of the campus scouts at Clearco, and we have some wonderful reps for you guys to meet today. So we have Mike, who's a software engineer at Clearco. He co-founded several startups in the past, and he is also a University of Toronto grad in computer science. We have Caitlin, who is a revenue analyst at Clearco. She basically handles a lot of growth transactions for Clearco, growth investments. And she is also a U of T grad. Lastly, we have Tyler, who is an investment analyst at Clearco, and he's also a U of T grad, and also the founder and president, former president of one of our fraternities at U of T. I'll hand it off to Andy to introduce the founders.
Hi everyone, my name is Andy Park, and I'm also one of the Clearco campus scouts here at U of T. So to meet the founders here today. So first off, we have Aryan Fazili, who graduated from York University with Bachelor's and a Master's of Science in Kinesiology and Exercise Science, and he is currently the founder at K Nutri Inc. Moving on, we have Sarah Tritsaris, sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, but she is the co-founder at Puppy Gang Fresh Foods, and she has worked and lived in 20 different countries throughout her career, such as Australia, Germany, Hong Kong, and the US, and she specializes in HR and talent management. And lastly, we have Dave O'Connor, who is the co-founder at Genuine Tea, who seems to be having tech troubles in the chat box, but he worked in partners with distributors in Taiwan, mainland China, Sri Lanka, India, Canada, and the US to create the best, freshest tea products in the tea industry. And pretty much what founders mean here in the term is that they are the founders that have been funded by Clearco. And through the event today, you'll be hearing their stories on why they chose Clearco as their source of funding and pretty much their entrepreneurial journeys that came here today.
Oh yeah, so thanks for introduction. And now I guess I can pass on to all the Clearco reps. So I guess you have your own slide deck, so please feel free to share it and like talk about more about Clearco.
And just to kind of add on to that, Tyler, if you have a slide deck to share, feel free to do so. And yeah.
Yeah, so no slide deck from me. I thought we would just kind of introduce ourselves, maybe go through a little bit about our day-to-day, if that sounds good for you guys.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, awesome. So I'll start first, I guess, and then pass it on to Mike. But yeah, so as you guys mentioned, I graduated from UT in 2019, doing a study called Peace, Conflict, and Justice at the Monk School. So that was kind of like international relations and light economics. Originally had aspirations of working in the government, but found out later that it wasn't the right path for me. But at Clearco, I'm working on the investments team in kind of a hybrid role. So I work with mostly existing clients in trying to find ways to support their business, as they move forward, right? So they might have worked with Clearco 2018, 2019, 2020, even as recently as, this year. But my role would be to learn about their business, find some potential pain points where they are looking to grow, and then kind of try and tailor solutions for how Clearco can help them achieve whatever their growth goals are. So it's obviously a really rewarding job. I enjoy it. Every day is different, which is a huge plus. And yeah, happy to answer any questions you guys might have in the subsequent sessions, I guess. But next off, I'll pass it to Mike.
Hey guys, you guys hear me or?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Cool, awesome. Yeah, my name is Mike Kang, and I'm a software engineer at Clearco. Before I did software engineering, I was a product manager at another startup that's in Toronto, and it was a neighborhood and home focused web and mobile app. Yeah, I made a intentional switch from product management into software engineering. And so if anybody has any questions in terms of product or software engineering, I'll probably be able to help answer those things. I'm in the partnerships team. So what the partnerships team does is, well, first of all, I'm sure you guys probably already know that our core customer are the founders. And thing about founders is that we are not the only ones that service founders. Obviously, there are many other businesses that help founders. It could be a web dev agency, it could be a design agency, it could be another capital firm, maybe a VC firm. There's just tons of other businesses that service founders. And so we realized that we can actually provide value together. And by definition, that would be a partnership. So the partnership team basically makes as many products as needed to help partners to service founders so that we both win and the founder wins. So that's what partnership does. My day-to-day is obviously there's code in there, but I think it's a little bit more exciting than that because we're in a scaling phase. And so things that we optimized for when we didn't predict growth, a lot of times you'll notice that you optimize thinking that like next year is your primary concern, but then what if you 10x your business? What if you become a unicorn? Nobody was planning to become a unicorn. So all your solutions are good for tomorrow, but maybe not so great for a year later. So how do you go back and kind of redo all the tech involved with that? I think if you want to be like a software engineer and learn how to rip out kind of past mistakes in an elegant way within an organization, learn how to operate with people, and that's a big part of it, of software is actually people, then Clearco is really interesting. If you guys have any questions on the product level, again, I didn't do product in our company, but I did product in another company and work a lot with product managers. I'll be able to help you with that. Yeah, so I'll pass it off to Caitlin.
Thank you, Mike. Hi, everyone. I'm Caitlin. I'm a revenue operations analyst at Clearco. So I work on the business operations and strategy team. I actually graduated from U of T in 2019 as well, but I did not know Tyler. We've actually never really met. But right after university, I went to a graduate development scheme at a large food service company in supply chain and procurement analytics. I thought that going to a huge company would be like the best thing ever, and I would learn so much by being able to rotate through different aspects of the company. I soon came to realize that large companies were not my thing, and I started looking for a new job, and I really wanted to work for Clearco. And like, long story short, I got the job on the RevOps team, and my day-to-day, I do a lot of reporting, whether it's in Looker or Salesforce. So I build reports, I build dashboards, I help with any finalized numbers at the end of the month. Right now, a large focus of my day-to-day job is helping out with 2022 planning, pulling any numbers needed for that, any conversion rates, fun stuff like that. The most exciting part of my job is actually the strategy projects and insights that my team does. We look at a lot of inefficiencies, whether that's with our sales team, the marketing team, the partnerships team, and we create recommendations to advise best how to mitigate any issues that they're having or just help them perform better and therefore increase revenue.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting since you guys have like different roles within like Clearco. So really hear like lots of great like stories and experience you guys have. So I guess like first question will be can you tell us a little bit more about Clearco, like what kind of like service it offers and like what is its like sparkle point compared with other firms? And you guys can like feel free to take this question.
Yeah. Tyler, I feel like you would best get to talk about this.
Yeah, for sure. So I think kind of the way that we want to position ourselves and the way our mission is kind of structured is we're a company that's out there to try and be the kind of capital provider for founders, right? Kind of the whole like ethos of Clearco goes back to Michele Romanow and her experience both as a founder herself and on Dragon's Den, right? So, when she was building and scaling her own companies, she had to raise capital, right? And that either meant going to a bank, trying to get a commercial loan, which usually entailed personal guarantees, compounding interest, minimum payments, all that fun stuff that I'm sure our founders on the call have dealt with. Or on the flip side, when her companies got a bit larger, trying to go to VCs for fundraising, right? And what that meant is giving up equity, usually to fund things like marketing and inventory. So Clearco was kind of made to fill that gap and be a source of capital that didn't exist on the market before, right? So our main kind of standout points for founders are that we don't charge personal guarantees or compounding interest like a bank would. And then unlike VCs, we don't take equity, right? So we're not going to eat into your business by taking ownership of the company. Now, with all that being said, we provide a whole suite of products and experiences that I'm sure both Mike and Caitlin could speak to as well, to try and give founders an edge and more than just capital, right? So whether that's partnerships, data and analytics on their marketing and kind of competitiveness in their vertical, we try to be like a one-stop shop for anything that founders might need.
Yeah, I think Tyler said it pretty well. There are some products that we're developing. I'm pretty sure I can't talk to you guys about all of them. But I think to put the long story short, it's predicated upon a couple of ideas. The first one is that we're moving into a founder economy. So what that means is that, you no longer have like a set path where you're, going to graduate and then get a job per se. You may get a job, you may just become a founder, you may have a job and then become a founder. In that process, there's a lot of education that's needed. And maybe you're not a company that's making like $1 million or $10 million a year. And so what Clearco wants to do is it wants to help the founder through its total journey. It doesn't only want to be a capital lender. Sorry, I shouldn't say the word lending because we don't actually lend at all. It doesn't only want to be a capital provider, but it also kind of wants to be a company where it's like, oh, you're not fitting the criteria because your revenue, let's say, isn't good enough. So what should we do here? How can you grow your business? It wants to be on that kind of educational side as well. And it also wants to help you, let's say, if you want to exit your company or if you want to sell your company or, if you want to make a strategic decision, maybe you have a SaaS company and you want to change your annual revenue to your monthly revenue to your annual revenue. So in pretty much everything from the beginning to the end, and the end can look very different and maybe it never hits the end. Maybe the person doesn't sell. Clearco wants to be there And so fundamentally it's predicated upon the idea that we're going to have more founders coming into the economy over the next like decade or so. And if there are more founders coming in, we have institutions, obviously, like universities that teach students and kind of funnel them into an industry job. What are the institutions that we have right now that funnel people into better entrepreneurship at every single stage? If you think about the question like that, it's far more than capital providing. So that's basically what Clearco wants to achieve.
I can chime in a little bit there, I guess. I think you guys summed it up very well. Everything that we do is founder focused. So we have company town halls once a week or once every 2 weeks, and we usually have founder stories presented there. And we have a lot of founders that come on and speak their stories and what's going on in their life right now. So it's super cool, super interesting, very fun.
Yeah, that sounds cool. It seems you guys like offers like lots of services that different from like traditional offerings. So like kind of like a further question on that. So like can you guys give some examples like your like actual engagement with startups, like some really exciting kind of like experience?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So kind of in my role, I'm working with a portfolio of anywhere from 50 to 80 founders. And these are founders that have, like I said, had a existing relationship with Clearco, whether that's 6 months, 12 months, 3 years. So it's really just every day trying to reach out to a different founder, trying to connect with a different founder, especially at this time of the year. As I'm sure a lot of you guys know, obviously Black Friday on Friday. So there's a lot of unique demands that arise at this time of the year. So a little anecdote I can go into for some context on what that might mean. Obviously I can't share names of companies, but I was working with one of my clients in the fitness industry last week, and he kind of came to us on the Tuesday morning saying that he had, an immediate need for inventory by the end of the week. So, kind of myself and my colleagues in the team were scrambling to try and find ways that we could help him, a capital amount that would work for him, and kind of trying to structure that deal in a way that would complement his existing capital that we've deployed for him. So yeah, there's a lot of moving pieces in that, right? It's a lot of touch points with the founder to see, does this deal work for you? Or, how can we pull different levers to make sure that you're getting the best outcome here? And then from that, communicating to our team, trying to find ways to meet in the middle, for example, on, what the client wants or what the founder wants versus what we might actually be able to provide at that time. So it's a very interesting kind of back and forth with a lot of parties involved, where you're trying to make sure you can get the best deal possible for these founders that really need help and our assistance right now. So that part of the job is very rewarding, obviously, since you can kind of see how we're impacting founders and how we're actually helping them hit their goals and their needs for the quarter and more broadly in their business.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. And maybe like Caitlin or Mike can like share your guys' experience.
I actually don't speak to any of the founders. I just get to hear all the awesome stuff that happens through our town halls or speaking with our reps. So I can't give much insight there.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, also, software engineer doesn't really speak, but you would have been in luck if our product designer was in there, because product designer obviously meets with a lot of customers and kind of trying to make the designs, make the product for specifically for what the customers want to use. But yeah, usually the software engineers will enter after that to kind of plan together and make a solution based off of the interviews that the designer or the product manager had. Yeah, so I don't directly face any of our founder customers. Would be happy to though.
Yeah, no worries. But like, I feel like the experience sounds pretty good. And just like before we move on to next section, a funny question. So Caitlin, are you on a like singing desk right now?
Me?
Yeah, are you like
Yeah.
yeah,
I
because
am. I know I'm swaying back and forth. I got a standing desk because whenever I sit at a desk or like I'm in meetings, I get so fidgety and I constantly move around. So having a standing desk has like saved my life. So I
Oh
can just play
yeah.
back and forth. I know it's kind of distracting, so I apologize for that.
Oh no, I really like it because like sitting on this for a long time is really very distracting. So like that. um yeah, so I hope you guys can maybe also find a way to like get a like standing desk. It's cool because there's one new college, so you guys can check it out. Anyway, bring back to our own topic. So thanks so much for talking about Clearco. I guess next we'll move to the exciting part, which you guys can know more about the founders. So actually, we have lots of questions prepared for all of you guys, all the founders. So we're really excited. Yeah, and like for questions, like ask questions, and you guys can take feel free to take. Yeah. So I guess the first question is, can you tell us a little bit about your background and your startup? Mhm.
Sarah, do you want to go first?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Tritsaris. I'm one of the founders of Puppy Gang Fresh Foods. We started in May 2019 as a result of my business partner's dog, Kalinda the Schnauzer, and she was a rescue from a puppy mill. She was very malnourished, she was overweight, she could barely walk, and she had a lot of illnesses. And after speaking to many vets and feeding many different brands of dog food, Kalinda was not getting any better until we found a holistic veterinarian who said, whoa, this is all processed foods. So we know as humans, when we are eating processed foods, we're generally not feeling so great. So we switched her to a whole foods diet. And within 3 months, she lost half her body weight, her illnesses went away. She's now running and jumping like a puppy. So we felt like we had to do this for everyone. And so we started the business to help educate pet parents. My background prior to Puppy Gang Fresh Foods, I have lived in quite a few different countries. I've worked for very large global organizations, and I've worked for smaller companies and startups, always in human resources. And so making the shift as a founder was very exciting, challenging, stressful, rewarding, a whole bunch of different things. And it's super exciting to be in a position where we can talk about our experience with you.
Yeah, thank you. I really like the story about the cute puppy, and then we can move on to Aryan.
Yeah, that's an awesome story. Mine is kind of similar, except I was the one that lost weight. So when I went into university, like most of you, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, so yeah, when I went to university, I put on like a freshman 40. So I just wasn't exercising. I was eating very poorly, and I put on a lot of weight. At the time, I was trying to become a dentist, so I was taking a lot of the courses that most people would take when they're doing a Bachelor of Science. And yeah, fast forward a year or two, I was quite unhappy. I was on the right path with education, but I wasn't on the right path with my health. So you might be familiar with it, but I did what's called a ketogenic diet, and I lost a whole bunch of weight. And it sort of like revolutionized my life because I felt amazing and I looked awesome. And so fast forward to my fourth year, I actually got accepted into the New York University School of Dentistry. And it just wasn't that happy of a day when I felt like I should have been more excited. So I ended up deferring that acceptance for a year and just taking a year off to like work and figure out what I wanted to do. And I started a small company, basically helping people lose weight. That's sort of how I started out with business. And I really enjoyed that. It wasn't a scalable business, but I got a taste of what it meant to sort of start a business and market it and, deal with social media and all that stuff. So I ended up declining my acceptance to dentistry. I went on to do a master's at the same school looking at the impact of sugar and how that relates to obesity and cancer. So I did my master's, and then basically the month that I graduated, which was the end of 2018, I launched my vitamin and supplement line, which is called K-Nutri.
And that's sort of how everything kind of came together. So we're just, as of this month, just hit 3 years in business. And so, I can get into the details of capital and Clearco later on, but that's just sort of the background of how I got started and what led me to start my company.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. I really like the personal story behind it. So very nice to hear it. And then we'll move on to David.
Oh, he's not here. I think he was still having some audio issues, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I just got an email from David saying that due to technical issues and like something came up, he's like had to dip the event. So yeah.
Oh yeah, no worries. So we can have more time to like get interaction with our two other amazing founders. So I guess we can just move to another question we have. So I think you guys already talked about like how do you guys like arrive to your idea right now. So like maybe like you guys can talk about like what is like the pain point that you're actually solving for customers. Like maybe not just like for like your original story, like a small point, but like rather like in a like a broader scale. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so for us, we knew there was a need in the market because everyone we knew fed their dogs dog food that you get off a shelf, including us when we had dogs growing up. So we knew that as pet parents, we just didn't realize what it was that we were feeding our dogs. What we didn't understand when we originally started the company was the more specific pain problems that dog owners were having. And it was probably about 6 months in that someone said to us, but hold on, do you actually know the problems that you're solving for? And asked the question. We were like, oh no, actually we didn't ask anyone. We just went on our way, which is not the right way to start a business. So we almost had to restart. We did a lot of surveys. We spoke to a lot of people. We did a lot of interviews. We went to dog parks and just chatted with dog owners. And we ended up with about 5 or 6 really key pain points that dog owners were having. Things like their dog wouldn't eat and they were fussy eaters. Dogs were overweight and weren't getting enough exercise or just was eating too much. Dogs that were getting sick and the vet bills were costing, $400 every time they visited. So we were able to really narrow it down to about 4 or 5 pain points that we could then help to resolve, acknowledge it was an issue, and help to answer that. And then it also, which I'm sure we'll talk about later, understanding those pain points really helps us to build our marketing plan and our advertising plan and be able to spend the money in the right way, focused on what actually our customers need.
Mm-hmm. That sounds amazing. And I'll pass on to Aryan.
Yeah, so when I was, dieting myself or exercising, I found it difficult to find products that were not only tailored for like the low carb community, but things that had already been vetted by a reliable source. And so a lot of the stuff out there was either gimmicky or it had a lot of fillers, or it had hidden sugars, which I don't think belong in dietary supplements. And so I sort of looked at, what I was looking for in a supplement, what, my mom or my sister was looking for in a supplement. And that's sort of how we started. And so, with things that are simple, we try to source the best ingredients in the world, even if they cost a little bit more. And with things that are a bit more complex, we try to bring everything into one piece. So I'll give you an example. One of the things we made is a multivitamin pack. So we have, a bottle that has 30 packs in it. We have a men's multivitamin pack and a women's multivitamin pack. And basically it's got, 8 or 9 capsules in it, and it has everything you need. So it also takes the guesswork out of vitamins. Instead of buying, 5, 10 different bottles and then putting them into your pill jar, remembering to take them, forgetting to take them, if you travel or go on holiday. We created a pack with a 30-day supply. So sort of takes a lot of the guesswork out of the average consumer that might not know about supplements or what to take. And so you can just grab one in the morning or leave it on your nightstand and have it before you go to bed. It's got everything you need. It's got a food complex, a multivitamin, fish oils, something to support your hormones. And so, yeah, those were the pain points that we saw. The supplement industry is saturated, and there's a lot of people that are actually doing a very good job at it. So it is difficult to create noise when there's a lot of really great companies already existing. But we sort of had to figure out, like, what is the one thing that I think people are still missing, and we felt that was it. So
yeah, it sounds good, like, to see there are actually a lot of pinpoints that stuff for the customers and you guys are dealing with. So that sounds really cool. And I guess that's like about the startup part, like things actually about a startup. And then we're trying to move to like some questions about like how to actually start this. So the first question we have is like, what was your early founding strategy, and like what resources are you trying to use?
So for us, we did a lot of the work ourselves. We made a lot of mistakes trying to figure it out. We didn't have a network to lean on. We didn't know other entrepreneurs. Both Marissa, my business partner, and I were going into an area or an industry that we really didn't know much about. So the first thing we did was actually incorporate the business. We bought our website name and created our brand and did all the kind of legalities. We found ourselves a lawyer. We drew up our contracts between the two of us because we actually met living in Hong Kong, and we had been friends for about 4 years prior to starting the business together. So we're like, let's draw up some proper contracts. And then we joined a pre-accelerator here in Toronto. And that's actually what really helped us put a bit more structure to the business. So things like what problems were we solving and so on. I would say that in hindsight, what we should have done before starting and launching the business is spent a little bit more time in the research phase to start to build our network. I mean, ours is all whole foods. So we're all proteins, fruits, vegetables, organic supplements for dogs. So, really understanding how to manufacture at that kind of scale, where we could buy bulk produce from and things like that. So I would say spend a bit more time in the research phase, build your network, learn from others on mistakes that they made. Because we probably could have saved ourselves a lot of time if we had that network a little bit earlier.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. And yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so for us, the beginning, I wouldn't say I was lucky. I would say that I spent the year prior to launching the supplement line, I guess you could call it preparing. I had no idea really that it would lead to a supplement line because it's so expensive to do. It's really not easy to start a supplement company by yourself with little capital. What I had was probably close to, I don't even remember, maybe $80,000 in the bank. I had spent 5-6 years waiting tables and bartending throughout my undergrad. And that sort of prepared me from a financial perspective. And then what I did during my master's is I started that company. At the time, it was a different name as well, where it sold keto programs. But what I acquired through that was a skill set of social media and marketing. And I also built a small community. So what I did was I tried to create as much helpful content as possible. And this is probably my first piece of advice for an entrepreneur is get really good and become an expert in your niche before even trying to sell a product, because it's going to be so easy to convert customers once you do. And so, like I said, I spent a year growing an Instagram page revolving around low carb diets. I put out infographics, I created videos, I started a podcast, I created YouTube videos, I did Instagram lives. I did whatever I really could to create a community around, the ketogenic diet or low carb diets. And so when it came time to start the supplement company, I had already had, I think, 15,000 Instagram followers. I had an email list of like 2,000 people. I had like probably 100 clients that had lost weight and had built some sort of trust with myself and our brand. We changed the name and the logo slightly, but it was still, like overnight, we just changed the Instagram handle and told our email list and our Instagram followers, and it was a really smooth transition. So yeah, I guess that would have to be my first piece of advice. I just have to like really reinforce that that helped us out a lot. And I'm sure anyone who's thinking about starting a business, you don't actually have to start a business to be an entrepreneur. You can start becoming an absolute expert in what you're doing. And when you know more than everybody else, when it comes time to start your company, believe me, you'll find ways of taking the market share when that time comes. So yeah.
That's a very inspiring story, and yeah, just like also like lots of great advice as well. So actually, just go dive further with that. So like, why do you choose to work with Clearco, and how has Clearco helped?
So when we first started, Marissa and I had full-time jobs elsewhere, and we were bootstrapping Puppy Gang Fresh Foods, meaning we were paying out of our own pocket all of the costs. We didn't have any funding or support. We did that for about 12 months. And as a startup, as we started to grow, our costs kept increasing. We didn't have volume at that point to be profitable. And things got a little tight for us to continue to fund the business. We were at that point spending more and more on advertising and marketing. We wanted to have extra inventory. As we were scaling, we needed to move to a bigger kitchen and so on. For us, because we were still so small, we didn't feel like we wanted to go down the equity route, because we felt like we'd give a big chunk of the business away for not very much money at that stage. And so we really weren't interested in that. We heard about Clearco from, or through Michelle, I would say, in seeing, following her career and what she had done. And we reached out and got the funding. What was great for us about Clearco, and we still use Clearco funding, is that the revenue share portion means that we pay back as we are also successful. So unlike a bank, and we didn't go to a bank at that stage, where we just have a flat interest rate and no matter what's happening in the business, we have to pay that back. With Clearco, as we earned revenue, we would pay back some of that money from our revenue. So it made sense for us in a very sustainable way, where we weren't giving away the business and we weren't also paying out money that we just didn't have to give out.
That sounds cool. Oh, sorry. I thought you were going for it. Yeah, you can just go for it. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. So basically, we launched at the end of 2018, and less than a year in, it was summer of 2019. I'm not. Some of the reps might know, like my founder story, and people here might not know, but basically, less than a year into the company, I had a really bad cough that wasn't going away. And it turned out I had a football-sized tumor in my chest, and I got a 50% chance of surviving that tumor. And that was less than a year in. I was actually working a full-time job. So yeah, it was a really stressful time in my life, a time where I really didn't even have the energy to like sit at a laptop. I have a lot of images of me going through like our Black Friday in 2019 from my hospital bed, while I'm like hooked up to an IV doing chemotherapy. And so that was a challenging time, but a very rewarding time, because luckily I had surgery, and 2020 started on the right foot. I was put into remission, and that was sort of like right when the pandemic was starting. So when the pandemic started, I was still sort of recovering from surgery, and the pandemic hit, and then our sales boomed. I guess people started to really prioritize dietary supplements during that time. And it wasn't exactly a time where, I was the most energetic, or I was able to put 100% of my time mentally and physically into the business. And so it was like a very difficult time. I didn't know how to scale this company. I wasn't really prepared for it either. I didn't think it would happen the way that it did. We 5x'd our monthly revenue from February 2020 to June 2020. And if you can imagine, when you have a company that has a commodity that needs to be replenished, and you're relying on a supply chain that's now been directly hit by COVID, you're like happy that things are growing, but there's absolutely no chance that you can keep up with it, especially if you're not pursuing venture capital. And even if you were, we had lead times that were, months and months, and it felt like it was forever. So this was right around the time that we actually got connected with Clearbanc. One of my really good friends is, I don't know if he still is, but at the time he was managing all of the advertising for Clearco. And I asked him to send an introduction. I started talking to Clearco, and it was like the tipping point, because at the time you had to do a minimum of $10,000 a month to get financing from Clearco. And so we kind of like, it was like, felt like it was perfect timing. So we got funding from Clearco. We were able to sort of get through, that year, however we could, managing all the delays, sort of just like doing whatever we could to just stay afloat, keep selling, wait for products to come in. And 2021, again, I thought the supply chain delays would get better. I thought they would go away. They actually only got worse in 2021, because if you've read about the Suez Canal or any of the energy crises that are going on around the world, it's even harder now logistically as well to get products in. And so it feels like we're heading in the right direction, and 2022 should be a good year of things getting back to normal. But having said that, 2021 was really difficult to scale, even more so than 2020. And we were with Clearco this whole time, and so during 2021 things actually slowed down, but luckily, because of the revenue share model of Clearco, we didn't have to give more money on a day-to-day process. So for example, we were on like a 10% revenue share with Clearco, and if we had a bad month where we couldn't get our best seller in and our revenue dropped by $15,000 that month, we didn't have to continue to give Clearco the same amount we did the month prior when we were doing well. And so, there are ebbs and flows in business. Some months you're just like, what is going on? How am I going to get past this? But if you have funding in a manner that's sustainable to your business and can give you a predictable cash flow, it puts you into a much better position. We really struggled with the delays this year, and I already don't know how we are where we are right now. And if we didn't have Clearco, I honestly don't know where we would be. I know that for a fact we would have had to give up equity and get, investors involved, which in the world of business is not the end of the world, but we didn't want to do it this early. And the longer you wait to get an investor involved, the higher your valuation is, the more money you can get. And so I always felt like we were doing things on our terms, which was avoiding investors. I didn't want to grow, and become a $10 million company overnight and have all the headaches associated with it and have all the investors associated with it. So Clearco allowed us to do things on our own terms, which was something that I really appreciated and something that I always wanted out of my own business.
Mm-hmm. Really like the story. Lots of great details and some like personal perspectives. So that's amazing. So I guess just add up to that. So like, what kind of like criteria or parameters that should consider as entrepreneurs before accepting the funding from investors, like speaking from you guys' experience?
Sorry, could you say the question again? What kind of?
Oh yeah, for sure, definitely. So like, which criteria or parameters should be considered as entrepreneurs before accepting the funding from investors?
So I would say make sure if you're doing do you mean family and friends? Sorry, do you mean equity investors or do you mean like Clearco?
I guess both, just like general funding.
Oh, okay. I think it really depends on your situation. For us, we probably underestimated how much capital would go into a business like ours. So I would say whatever you think, triple it. We did want to bootstrap. We didn't want to get into a situation where we owed money. We didn't know if the business was going to be successful, even though we 100% believed in it. we just had no ability at that point to know were we going to make it or would there be a need for this. So in the beginning, we were very cautious about taking anyone else's money. And when we're not really a tech company where you do get investment before you even launch. So we didn't really have that option as far as equity at that point. Once we started getting to a size where we couldn't fund anymore and we needed some funding, we wanted to make sure we could pay it back. We continued to bootstrap for a while, but we were very aware of if we were going to do a family and friends round and do some equity investment, that we knew we would be able to make it successful. We didn't want that burden on ourselves and that extra pressure, which is why we felt a company like Clearco was really great, where we can pay parts of our revenue, and it's really up to us how long that takes based on our revenues. So I would say it really depends on your type of business and where you are financially. If you need the funding, if you've got a great business idea, there are a ton of investors, angel investors, VCs, that are always looking at very early stage startups and willing to invest. So I think it depends on your circumstance and what you're looking for.
Then I'll pass to Aryan.
Yeah, I have to agree with Sarah here. I spent a long time saving money to start my business, and I always say that I feel like I've been a business owner for the past 10 years because I spent 7 of those years saving money to start the company myself. Today we have 100% equity in the company, and we're doing okay for ourselves. And I guess the one question you have to ask yourself, if you're in this chat, you're listening to all this, you may be interested in starting a business one day. And the most important thing you need to ask yourself is how do you want to run the business? Because like Sarah was saying, some people are very, very happy to go out and raise $4 million and then launch their software company afterwards, which is pretty normal in the software as a service industry. Or you might be conservative and you might really want to just do it your own way, grow it a bit slower, maybe get acquired after 10 years, 20 years, but be your own boss and not really report to another board of directors. Luckily, I had mentors when I was starting who have built some really successful companies. And that was the same advice that they gave me is, what kind of company do you want to build? And how do you want to do it? And it sounds like a silly question because it should be hard to predict, but if you're building a business or if you're starting a business, it's because you have an expectation of what it could become. Otherwise, why would you be starting that business, right? So, you have to assume that your business will do well, it will be successful, and you have to sort of know what you want out of it. I co-founded this company with my girlfriend, who's now my fiance, and when we started it, we were really like, what do we want out of it, and how long do we want to take to get there? And so, we always agreed that we would go as long as possible until we got an investor involved and gave away a piece of the company. I will do it if I absolutely have to, but I've been happy with our growth doing it on our own. So yeah, everyone is going to have a different path. Everyone is going to have a different mentality. But where we're at now and how much we've grown, it's gotten to the point where I think we may look at private equity next year, because, instead of owning 100% of a $5 million business, I could own 90% of a $20 million business, right? So it really depends on where you're at, what your goals are. And those are important things to ask yourself before you start a business.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, there's so many different schools of thought on this. And I would say, in my opinion, there's no right answer. But we're not yet profitable. And we are not yet trying to be profitable. So we're 2.5 years in. And some will tell you have to be profitable to grow. Some people will tell you don't worry about profitability. So that's why I say there's really no right or wrong answer. But, our philosophy is that we are a volumes, we're basically in food manufacturing. The margins are very small. It's volumes for us. We are so passionate about what we're doing and spreading the word to dog owners to help save dogs' lives, that we took the decision that we would rather grow the business and spread the word as much as we could, and not to ignore profitability, but to focus more on growth and be responsible with money rather than overkilling and worrying about profitability, which could stunt our growth. So again, it's not a black or white growth or profitability, but for us, because we are such a small margins business, we really had to take that decision. Let's make sure we're being very responsible with money, but let's focus on the growth of our business, which will drive our volumes, and then we'll become profitable. So I think, from a funding perspective, it depends on how fast as well you're getting to profitability, you're able to pay yourselves, you're able to put money back into the business. And for us, we're just not there yet, not on purpose. I mean, we'd love to be profitable, but we know exactly where we are as a business. And so the funding that we do get, we really do require and rely on so that we can continue to reinvest. And what we've done with it is it's allowed us to continue to ramp up our marketing and advertising spend. We've brought in new product lines. So we've got our food, but we've brought in treats, we've brought in supplements, we've brought in a few different things. And we're continuing to expand geographically as well. So I think, again, every business is different, depends what you're looking to do. And with that comes then the funding question of how long can you sustain and what kind of support do you need?
Mm-hmm. Wow, really appreciate the detailed answer. And I noticed someone asked a question in the chat. So basically how COVID impacted sales and distribution of product. And I saw Sarah, you answer it. But maybe you just I'm thinking I brought it up to the whole session. So maybe you guys can elaborate on what is the COVID impact on the overall of the business, not just the distribution, what kind of impact made, and what kind of strategy you guys take to mitigate that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so actually, interestingly, when we first started, we did try and get into retail, but we were being watched from somewhere, and because we didn't have brand recognition, no retailer wanted to really talk to us at that point. So that worked out in our favor, given what happened with COVID, in that we stayed all e-commerce, we were online, we were delivering to home, and we continued to grow. Aside from that, I think what impacted everyone across the board is the cost of goods. So there were delays in shipping, the cost of food went up, the cost of paper went up, our boxes went up, everything became more expensive because things were either being delayed or because there was such a need for those products that the prices were being driven up. We're actually still seeing that happening, hoping it starts to come back down, but we're definitely seeing, whether it's from the ingredients we use all the way through to our boxes, installation, that the prices have all increased, and that's been directly linked to what's happened throughout COVID.
Mm-hmm. Then I'll pass to Aryan.
Yeah, it's very interesting what's happened. In one way, I feel very fortunate and grateful that we still have our business today and it's still operating. In another way, 2021 was really unkind to us in terms of our global delays in sourcing ingredients, plastic bottles, things that we didn't really give much thought to before the pandemic hit. But yeah, so we have a few, we have about 8 to 10 products. 2 or 3 of them are I call them our winners. They're our core products, and they generate most of our revenue. And so our second bestseller has been sold out for most of this year. And so we were coming from a point last year where we did extremely well. 2020 was great. So we go into 2021. Now we've ramped up our expenses. We're spending more for our fulfillment. We have put in bigger orders for other products. We now have contractors, affiliates, influencers on our payroll. We pay more for our softwares on Shopify. So because your email list goes up, you have to spend more on the email program. Because you do more than X amount of sales, you pay more for your Shopify program. So generally speaking, all of our expenses went through the roof in order to account for this scaling of our business into 2021. And then we were told basically every week, okay, the product is coming, and then we ended up going months without it. So we lost, I would just guess, somewhere around $15,000 a month just on this one product. And you can imagine what that would do to your cash flow when you now accounted for expenses to allow you to grow your business. And so when businesses are not doing well, it is a nightmare. Every single aspect of your business gets hit because now you have more expenses and less income. So whatever income you had left over, you're really having a hard time scaling the products that are still selling, let alone the ones that you need to bring in. So the delays through COVID were a nightmare. They started out great because we had a boost in sales, and then they trickled into 2021 with ingredient shortages around the world, and it's been an absolute nightmare. Luckily, from talking to suppliers, things are slowly getting back to normal, and they expect 2022 to sort of resume by the second quarter, back to your routine. But yeah, it's been very challenging, and I'm just fortunate that we're here now, and we're going into our busiest time of the season, which is this weekend and Boxing Week / New Year's. So we'll make the most of it and get back on our feet, but it was extremely challenging.
Well, thanks so much for all your experience. I guess before we move to our last two questions, we are trying to take a group photo together. So feel free to turn your cameras and now stop sharing my slide, so all of you guys can pops up to the main room. Gallery mode. Yeah, so if you can turn your camera, that'd be really great, and we can take a group photo together. Okay, I guess we're going to take it in 3 seconds. So, oh crap, sorry. 3, 2, 1. Great, let's take another photo. So 3, 2, 1. Thanks so much, guys. I know this always kind of be like a little bit awkward, but thanks so much. I really appreciate it. So I guess we'll just move back to our exciting questions for our founders. So let me just bring back the screen. Yes, it's up. Perfect. So our last 2 questions, first of all, this is actually a very interesting question. Do you guys have any job opportunities available for our audience that they can apply for? So do you guys need some interns for the summer?
We are not actively looking for anyone, but are open to talking with people and seeing what opportunities might come up. So if anyone has a specific skill set or interested in a certain area, please do reach out, and happy to have a chat.
How about Aryan?
So we just actually partnered with another university for their winter internship program, and so we're hoping to bring on board 2 or 3 interns for the winter, and then sort of the messaging to those interns as well as anyone in this chat is that we're always happy to look at resumes or chat with anyone who has an interest in this industry. And, we're hoping that some of those winter interns roll over into summer interns next year. And then from there, if opportunity allows, to become, employees. So Yeah, I'm pretty open. If you are in this chat, I know some people, I haven't met everybody. There's some people in here that I guess have their cameras off, so I can't meet you face to face. But if you want to shoot me an email, our company sounds interesting to you, or you know, you just have a passion for something that you think could elevate our business, I'm more than happy to take a look or chat with you further.
Mhm. That sounds amazing. And if you guys are able to do that, like please feel free to like post your guys' contact, like email for like people if they're interested to reach out to you guys. Mhm. Really appreciate it. And I guess while you guys typing, I'm going to ask the final question we have today. It's more like a very general or like kind of broad kind of question. So basically, what learning resources like books or online materials or anything else would you recommend someone that who has no prior experience with entrepreneurship?
I would say Audible has been my best friend. I have lost time to sit quietly and read. So whenever I'm out walking my dog, I'm listening to a book and trying to maximize any time I can to continue learning. You know, there's a million books that I could recommend. I've read a lot or listened to a lot, and gotten something from all of them. So I'm not sure I can really give one at the moment.
You can give multiple, yeah.
Yeah, I would say though, keep learning. There's different schools of thought on so many things that you have to find what works for you. Probably the best thing that we have done is get a mentor who has actually someone that started their own business themselves. We meet once a month and they really help and give advice and make introductions for us and help us with networks and things like that. I would probably say that's been the most valuable because listening to someone's real advice is great. I also listen to a lot of podcasts, business podcasts. So yeah, thanks.
Do you have like any like recommended podcasts that you often listen to?
Yes, I can tell you. Just give me 1 second what I'm listening to right now. So there's a group called the Smart Marketer. We actually did a training course with them, but learned a lot from them. They have a podcast as well. Learned a lot from them about marketing and advertising, and they often answer in podcasts a lot of questions of challenges you're having. So that's the Smart Marketer. Tim Ferriss, really love his books and also his podcasts. And I like also How I Built This is a good one. There's one that actually kind of does kind of little debates. What's that one called? Sorry, I can't remember what that one is actually called. Oh, Business Wars. Business Wars is a really fun one. It actually talks about two different companies, how they've struggled against each other and the stories that they've been through and how they've actually turned it around or not, and where they've ended up.
Really appreciate our recommendation, especially like add a little bit examples. I feel like they probably like help people to like easily get like what this podcast is talking about. So really appreciate that. And also for same question for Aryan.
Yeah, so my favorite book is Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. So that's Phil Knight is the founder of Nike. It's a very interesting read, and it will remind you that it's okay to not know what you're doing, and that you're going to make some mistakes along the way. It was probably the most important book that I read before I started my business. The second favorite is How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's a very old book, but it will teach you how to build relationships, which is probably the most important part of building business. Anything by Gary Vee. I mean, it'll just pretty much tell you at the end of the day to create content and have fun doing it. So anything Gary Vee is good. And that's pretty much it. You know, I've been bad this year with reading myself, so I have to start learning again. But those three are probably my top recommendations.
Mhm. That sounds really great, and really appreciate like all of you guys' experience, like very detailed about like all the answers and you guys' experience. So really appreciate that. And like we have already seen like people are asking very detailed and personal question in the chat box. So why not we just move into like our exciting networking like portion of our session. So I'm going to stop share my screen. And I guess Nivi will set up breakout room. So there will be like a great breakout room for the clerical reps, and there will be breakout room for our founders. So and I guess you guys can like just feel free to pick the breakout rooms you guys interested and feel free to join.